Hi, Georgia. It was a pleasure listening to you, and you have highlighted some really nice strategies to help students remember, complex ideas and complex concepts. I loved your idea of the B and D, and it's funny though that I have also used that with my mentor teacher as a student teacher in my classes. Yeah, we do tell them B is for belly and D is for diaper. So diaper comes behind and belly comes in the front. That's quite effective. So yes, making things learning fun for the students definitely is a great characteristic of an effective teacher. So I really love that part, and I think that you're doing a great job. You have raised a few questions. You asked whether I have ever struggled to differentiate materials for my students. Well, yes, I think differentiation is a very complex process, and unless and until a teacher really, really knows her students really well, and unless you've done all your homework regarding collecting data and about your students' learning style, what they like, what are their likes and dislikes, what are the areas of strength, and then, of course, what are the areas of their improvement, you will not be able to differentiate effectively. So, those are some very important points that we have to keep in mind while differentiating. That is what makes it challenging as well. So, knowing your students is very important for you to differentiate. Um, I can cite one example from my teaching when, in one of my science lessons, I had to assess my students on different sources of light and which ones were transparent, translucent, and opaque. So I gave them a house model, and which they created themselves, and then they had different objects in the house which they had to label. So I differentiated it in a way that I reduced for the for those students who needed extra support. I reduced the number of questions they had to attempt. And then for my bilingual learners, I added Spanish cognates with pictures. So since it wasn't an ELA lesson and it was a science lesson, they really benefited from the pictures and the cognates, and were able to actually do really well on the exit ticket. And I was very pleased to see that, some of my very low performing bilingual students who were struggling with English language and even had cognitive issues were able to identify objects that were transparent, translucent, and opaque by using those cognates and using those pictures. So yeah, it's not impossible to differentiate. It's a little struggle, but it's not impossible, and we have to make sure that we're not just differentiating for the sake of differentiating. It has to be aligned with the objectives. And then there are so many ways to do it: through the product, what the children are going to produce, through the process, what steps are they taking, how are they going to do it, and then of course the content, like what content are we providing them, like how to chunk the content or make it easier for them, or reduce the size of the content. So there are different ways to do that. So yes, definitely it's a challenge, but it's not impossible. And I think if you have hit the right spots, you will definitely be able to make it really effective, a really effective strategy. um, then you have also asked about the fact that how do I group my students. So grouping students is also, it's like a key strategy in the classroom. So that can also be done based on different aspects. It could be done based on their learning styles. We could do it based on their abilities, their ability groups. We could do it on their interests. So, I mean, like, we have to keep in mind that we cannot isolate students in a mix in a same ability group, like a homogeneous group all the time, because it's mandatory for us to make sure that we're providing a least restrictive environment for our students. So we cannot keep in an ICT class that kills the motive of them being in an ICT, because you have special ed children and then you have your general ed. So you cannot group them always in like homogeneous groups. I think the best groups that work best in such a situation where you have a classroom with diverse students, I think is the heterogeneous, where students are grouped together, they can learn from collaborating with one another, and and gain support from each other. So learn from each other's strengths. So that is very important. And we also have to keep in mind that we cannot have low expectations for our students, that they won't be able to perform a certain task. So these are some things that you have to keep in mind while grouping. Your third question was about patience being the most key characteristic of an effective teacher. So I think indeed it is one of the most effective characteristics, because patience is a virtue for a teacher. If she's not patient, she won't be empathetic, she won't be able to understand the struggles of the student, and be able to provide the right kind of support. So research has shown that patience does contribute significantly to a positive classroom climate, which is essential for student success. Your fourth question is regarding the strategies that I would use to help struggling students. So there are many strategies. You have, you have to provide the targeted support. Once you know your students, you know their weaknesses, you have to provide them, a need-based support. So scaffolding is one, in which you could provide a temporary support and then withdraw it with time. That's a very effective method, where you're building on to their prior knowledge, and then you help them reach a certain stage, and then you let them do it independently. So that's one thing. Then I usually, in my classes, as I've mentioned before, I break down, and that's also very effective. I break down the content sometimes for them, like breaking down a question, breaking down an information page, so that it's more manageable and they have more steps like to follow, and you break it down for them. That would help. Then small group instruction, in which you could provide personalized instruction, based on the child's particular needs. That is also very effective. Then you have formative assessments to diagnose, the areas of improvement and strength for the child. So these are a few things that are really important for providing support to the struggling students. And of course, differentiation is another one, where, as I said, personalized support is differentiation, basically. So yes, that's all I have to say about your wonderful questions. And I was really excited to hear from you, and looking forward to hear from you again. Thank you for listening. Bye.